Greetings and welcome to the most irregular podcast on planet Earth on the internet. Greetings and hello, how you been? I know it's been a while. I am guilty of some remission, guilty though of doing other things. We have been helping the better half with her podcast. She is way more of a perfectionist than I am, so it drives her crazy. I don't do this regularly. She's working hard to get hers going on releasing the same night every week. She's working much harder than I am, so I'm very proud of her. But I am the more casual of the two of us, and so I get around to doing this every now and then. We have been busy, though. I think my wife is collapsing at night because she's doing everything we're doing, plus trying to do this podcast that she wants to do. Myself, we've been here and there. We do a lot of volunteer work, do some other things. So I don't always just take time to do everything that I want to do, including read as much as I want to, write as much as I want to. But eventually I do want to do these podcasts, and today is a day to do one. So what prompted the fact that I thought we should do one today? Well, it's quite a bit. I'm still writing in the blog, so if you see that, there's still been quite a bit written. I'm going to touch on some of that. What's, current events, of course. Mr. Kirk was shot. That was horrible. We don't want anybody to be shot, no matter what we think of their political views. That's kind of the antithesis of what we are as Americans. Americans are allowed to have a viewpoint. We need to learn to be a little bit better understanding of who we are as humans, though. We have lost that. And I say that because how much hate, and we all talk about hate, and I'm going to say this, hate is the worst four-letter word we have, and we have tons of hate. Now, I'm angry. It's different from being hate. I'm angry with quite a bit. I've got quite a bit in my brain I want to unpack, and I'm going to try to do it calmly, so wish me luck. But we cannot live with hate. Hate is really destroying this country. And then ignorance and stupidity aren't helping. I'm just going to start with this. Marjorie Taylor Greene says we need to get a divorce. Well, that's stupid. That's just flat out stupid. We need to separate this country. We do that, we're just handing the country to all our enemies. And I think there's a lot of people in our country who don't understand who our enemies are at the moment. But we have not too many, but we have a few. One of them being, I'm not going to say Russia, because Russia is a country of itself that's being run by Putin, and he is the enemy. He is really out, I don't know, he's got some crazy ambitions. And we need to be aware of that. And we need to be aware that they are not beneficial to this country at all. At all. So for Marjorie Taylor Greene to say we need to create a separate country or separate ourselves or divorce ourselves is stupid. We are handing ourselves over to the enemy. That's crazy. Then for the hate, we have people like Steve Bannon saying all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm not even sure where that man's brain is located, because he just comes up with the craziest stuff, and it is not good for our country. Not at all. There's no reason to think that we need to create a fascist state, a right-wing state that's going to make this country better. It will not, period. There's nothing good about dividing up this country at all. It doesn't benefit the people of this country. Goes back to another post I said, why aren't independents angrier? I'm really at a loss. I got a couple theories here. But right now, Steve Bannon's running around telling the world all sorts of insane things. He's even saying conspiracy theories for the Charlie Kirk murder. What purpose? We don't even know A, B, or C about this young man that killed Charlie Kirk. I mean, I shouldn't say that. They've got him in custody. I'm sure they're interrogating him. I'm sure his lawyer, I haven't seen in the news that mentioned that he has a lawyer. I'm not sure if he does. I'm supposing he does. I mean, at the very least, he gets a public defender. If he's had access to a lawyer, it hasn't said, or at least I'm not trying to read too many articles about it because it just drives, you crazy reading that stuff. So maybe I missed it. Maybe he has an attorney and the attorney is doing a good job of telling him to stay quiet. Good defense attorney tell their clients to stay quiet. It's the first basic strategy of a defense attorney until they can really sit down and talk and see where everything stands. FBI, I'm presuming the local authorities in Utah are still investigating, but Charlie Kirk has already found Steve Bannon's already found a couple of things wrong with the investigation and has gone deep into a rabbit hole telling everybody how the government's lying to us. Well, guess what, Steve? The government's been lying to us since 90 something, when it was truly fully formed and George Washington became president. Maybe not as much as it does today, maybe a lot less back then because they were still trying to figure things out. Today, the government's been lying to us. It's their job, it seems like. I mean, they have nothing else to do but lie to us. Of course, that's a problem. We don't want our government lying to us. It's not really the government. It is the politicians. They say all sorts of stuff, and it's just gotten worse year after year, decade after decade, now century after century. We're getting ready to be 250 years old since we declared independence. Not since the start of the government, current government. That was I think we ratified the whole Constitution late 1780s. I'm forgetting the exact details. Early 1790s is when George Washington became president. It's another problem we have. People don't pay attention to history. Here I am flunking history class right now. But we need to think about, what's going on? What has made us great? What made us great? And it's not division. It's not hate. It's not pointing fingers at each other, whether they be politicians or individuals or media figures or crazy lunatics. Because we got a lot of everybody pointing fingers right now. And that isn't helping us. I can't say stop because no human can stop the madness of another human. And I mean that figuratively, not literally. But every day, what goes on in the media or on social media or on the internet or on the airwaves or wherever, someone is just pulling batshit crazy stuff out of the left field and trying to convince people that this is what's going on. Are there problems? Yes. But what's going on with communications and the hate, the right wing saying the left wing is demonic evil and the left wing saying the right wing is all fascist? No, both sides are very, very small minorities. Right now, the right-wing minority of hate has gotten very, very, very loud, but there are people on the left who are just as crazy, and they'll point fingers at people on the right, and they'll say all sorts of horrible things about them, and people on the right are saying all sorts of horrible things about the left, and the vast majority of us in the middle are getting screwed, and for a lot of reasons. And I said I was going to say like a reason why I think, I don't know why independents aren't angrier. But I saw an article today that people are still spending money. Everybody's worried about the economy, but consumers are still spending. It's like, why would you be out spending your money if you're worried about your job? There's a little bit of logic and common sense that says, no, you should be stashing your money right now and making do with what you have. But apparently, according to this article, it was one article, that consumers are still, okay, everything's fine, I'm still going to go out and buy. They're not saying they're spending excessively, but there's not a big bump in savings rates. There's not a big bump in credit card usage declining. So that it's interesting. I think part of it is because you still hear the stock market's doing well. You still hear that everybody's investing in crypto. We all got to invest in crypto now. And people hear that and think, well, people got money, so things must be okay. Well, some people do. About 1% of the population has some money. The rest of us probably need to be a little bit more careful. But I'm guilty. I go to the grocery store and I have maybe a little bit. I've always watched for sales. I always buy stuff on sale. But I haven't gone, any deeper into trying to save money and watch my pennies than that. Very conscious of doing that. But overall, I'm just as guilty as everybody. So it's somewhat worrisome, not well for me, my family, but for everyone. We are still spending money, which, yes, you're right. We still continue to spend money that helps the economy, which helps to potentially keep people's jobs, because that's, what grows the economy is people spending money. So it's an interesting dichotomy, but I think there should be some concern With inflation, yeah, we do have inflation. A lot of articles discussing inflation, so we have to be very conscious of it. Some people say the tariffs didn't cause inflation. Some people say it hasn't happened yet. I think it's always somewhere in the middle is where we are when it comes to what the different sides say. So I think we do need to be careful with our money, but that isn't, what's driving all the madness. But it's kind of the logic. People see things visibly and hear things, but don't react maybe in an appropriate way. Is that kind of a side reason why independents aren't angrier at the political situation? I don't know. We just think because there's Republicans and Democrats, one of these parties will figure it out and do the right thing. As you know, I disbelieve that 100%. I don't think they've done the right thing for a long time. They make a lot of noise about doing the right thing. And they make a lot of noise about, our policy is the one you need, and you need to vote for us. And if you don't vote for us, the other side's going to ruin your life. Well, both sides doing this is beginning to ruin our lives because we're in pretty sad shape right now, I guess, psychologically as a country. Again, though, I think the vast majority are just trying to survive, and they want things to be normal. So maybe they're blocking out all this madness, which some ways would be good. Again, hate is the worst four-letter word on the planet, and if you can avoid the hate, you're probably doing pretty good. But you got to have some semblance of things aren't working right now. And again, psychologically, there's enough people in this country, either on the far left or the far right, who are demonizing each other. And by doing that, they then lump in everybody on the left or everybody on the right or every liberal or every conservative and say that whole group is evil. And that is why I think, why aren't independents getting angry about this? That's not me. I'm just trying to buy eggs. I'm trying to buy gas. I'm trying to get my kids to the football game, the soccer game, whatever sport they're playing, or band if they're in the band, or theater if they're doing the school play. That's what most people are focusing on and should be focusing on. But what's going on around them, this whirlwind around them of the far left and the far right, driving more and more anger, more and more hate, is they got to be conscious of it, be aware of it. And yes, they do need to be angry. Now, constructive anger is where they need to be, i.e., I need to find someone who can better run our government. That's where I come from. We just need better leaders that put the people first. Easy thing to say. And one reason that I stumble around and don't get anything, I don't make any action plans. I don't say, okay, we need better leaders. Here, John Doe is a better leader. Y'all go vote for him. No, honestly, I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't go out and look for these leaders that I think, we need. But I also get frustrated because every attempt I do make to get people just to open their eyes and their ears a little bit, it seems like it bounces off of it and falls and rolls down the floor into the bathroom drain and down into the sewage pipes. It boggles my mind why people aren't realizing we need something different. What we've had, this two-party system, this duopoly, is not in and of itself bad. What's happened is both sides have polarized each other, have become so partisan, they can't function. They can't function in making normal policy that benefits the vast majority of this country. They claim it's their ideas and it's the other side that is failing, but they're both failing. If they can point fingers successfully at each other, that should tell you something right now. Yeah, they're both right because they're both not doing what they're saying they're doing, which is an interesting little thought there. But it's where we are. So we need to kind of change that mindset. But the first thing we need to do is have voices become more prominent that aren't this shrill, screaming, everybody is bad. Because again, not everybody's bad. The vast majority of us aren't. Leading social media, leading the headlines, bleeding us out in this weird kind of mindset of we have got to do something horrible, like split up the country to be successful. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. It only emboldens Putin. It only emboldens China. Iran, I think Iran, I don't know how destroyed Iran is with their nuclear program with that big bunker buster bombs. But they're, even as a regional player, they're still struggling. They've got their own internal issues. I mean, we have to worry about them most definitely because they say death to America. We don't want that. But I don't worry about them as much in regards to their outside of maybe some kind of terrorist attack. They're not going to be major players against us. North Korea is such a wild card. You never know what they're going to do. And they have the capability to be a wild card. So you do have to worry about them. China's competing with us economically, and now they're pounding their chest, trying to show off militarily and act like they are some superpower. And it's hard to say with China because they really keep a good tap on where they actually stand, both economically, militarily. They're definitely increasing the military, so that's a concern. It's pretty obvious. And we have to worry about, their thoughts on Taiwan, if they're actually going to follow through on something, if they see us weakening, which they see us weakening enough, they may go for it. And Taiwan may become part of China. I don't think there's some people in Taiwan who want that. And I don't think we want that either, as a benefactor to them and their desire to be a free people or at least have their own self-rule. But China, they're feeling more and more emboldened. And this drives me crazy. And I don't understand it. And I know this is going to tick off a bunch of people and I'd say I'm spewing hate. But why so many people think Trump is a strong man is beyond me. I mean, he is not a strong man. He may have made some money. He may be good at certain things. He's definitely an opportunist. And by and large, being an opportunist, not a bad thing. I wrote an article and said Charlie Kirk is an opportunist. Not a bad thing. What you do with and becoming an opportunist may be interesting, but in a vacuum, being an opportunist is not a bad thing. I think Charlie Kirk was pretty smart. He saw opportunity, figured it out quickly, got lucky, and then went to town and worked hard, made it happen. That's about as American as you can get. Now, the fact that it was a very vocal, reactionary kind of a viewpoint he was purporting to, espousing, again, free speech, right to speak, but people have to realize that when it boils down to it, we need all of us, even old white people to young people who are trying to figure themselves out. We need all of us to make this country great. Failure to recognize that is a problem. And that's what the right's doing. Now, the left, you hear me talk a lot about the right now, and you say, well, how come you aren't criticizing the left right now? Because I will. I'm not afraid to. The most outside of the violent aspects, because there's a few violent people on the left, their biggest push is socialism right now because of all the rich and the one percenters and all that. And socialism, I feel strongly, is not going to take hold in this country. There will always be a few socialists because it has this utopian kind of theory that, people can attach themselves to and think that's the answer. Most Americans, we like our middle class living. We like comforts. We like things. We are a consumer nation. We are a nation that wants to be distracted with fun things. We'd rather be playing our video games, our fantasy sports leagues, doing whatever we want to do instead of worrying about crap we don't want to worry about, which is our government. Socialism takes a lot of that away. And as soon as people start realizing that, they're just going to push back on it. But the socialists won't get enough of the electorate to get elected. No one's going to stand up and defend them if they actually tried to take over our government. Now, the right wing's doing a little bit better job. People like Bannon and Miller, Andrew Vaught, I don't even know how to say his last name, Project 2025, they have done a much better job at trying to take over our country. And people like Marjorie Taylor Greene says that we have to split this up so these people can do what they want to do and these people do what they want to do. No, you are just handing our country to Putin because Trump, like I said, is not a strong man. And Putin mops the floor with Trump. And that should scare every American. I don't care if you're a socialist or right-wing person or Steve Bannon or whatever. If you think you're an American, you should be scared of the fact that Putin can mop the floor with Trump. And that is a fact. And Trump people may say, no, Trump is not the man you think he is at all. He can be manipulated at the drop of a hat. His own administration manipulates him. And it's getting worse, much worse. There are people in his administration who have more dangerous agendas than his, manipulating him to get what they want. Some people on the right are starting to figure this out. It's interesting. They're starting to figure it out. But quite frankly, if you're a fan of Trump, you need to worry about two things. One, his agenda is about to be messed up and his health. I say he's not a strong man. It's not because of his health, but his health is declining, and it's going to make it worse for him to be able to fight back whatever little fight back he could do. It just, again, boggles me that people don't realize he is not who he says he is. And he is not this caricature that people make of him. And I've written that you got to be careful about worshiping false idols. Because people do. There are people in this country who worship him. And that is inherently wrong. You can't worship another human being. And we do that. I mean, culturally, we do that. We worship our movie stars, our football stars, our sports stars, our rock stars, whoever. That's the greatest person around. We do have that problem as a human being, as human beings in this country. But it's been taken to next level exponentially with Trump. And just watching it happen, you got to think twice about this. I'm not saying Trump is not this or not that. There are people, honestly, and I'm talking about in the country, not in the administration, not in Washington, D.C., that wanted stronger immigration, that wanted our government, the swamp and our government to be cleaned out because they see that things aren't going well. And these are the things that they thought was the problem. And that's valid to think that. You have to work through these things and figure out, okay, if I want stronger immigration, what does that actually mean? Now, these people had hate built up in them for so long by certain right-wing media, including Fox News, Newsmax, who call the left demons and evil and all that. They can't see straight because they keep hearing this. If you keep telling people, those people over there are demons, sooner or later, you're going to worry about those demons. Even those people are just maybe clueless elitists. They're not demons. They don't get what's going on, and that people in the working class were suffering and hurting and afraid. Trump tapped into that, got elected. It's a valid reality that these people in the working class, especially blue-collar workers, were hurting and afraid, feeling, I'm going to use this word, neglected by D.C., by all the big Democrats who were supposed to be their protectors, their heroes. We're failing them. So, when Trump came along, you can see why people wanted to support him. He talked to them. He wasn't going to do anything for them, but he talked to them. People don't realize how, especially on the left and the general left, not the socialist and extreme left, but the general left, really didn't realize how bad they had ignored a good chunk of this country. Big time. They thought they were just everything. And whatever they said was, okay, we'll take care of it. No, then they started pandering to every little special interest group on the left they could. And they just lost sight of what they were supposed to do. And that's why the Democrats failed us. They say, oh no, we're the only ones who can stop Trump. No, you didn't stop the problem that led to Trump. You were part of the problem that led to Trump. You've got to realize that you can't just point fingers at the other side and say that's the solution. Literally, the current Democratic, let's say, policy platform can fit on one page at most. And then they don't even know how they would implement it or put it together. When they say universal health care, they have no clue how anybody's going to pay for that. And that scares everybody else because the only way they can pay for it is to raise taxes. At least that's what the surface shows. And no one wants their taxes raised. The rich don't. They're good at getting their taxes lowered. The rest of us sit around. Why aren't we angrier? I don't know, but we sit around and let them do it. And we don't get the benefits the rich do. They've already got billions of dollars. We've got to figure, again, new leadership out to do this. The Republicans aren't going to help you. They're too busy, Republicans in D.C., too busy being scared of Trump or worshiping Trump. And both of them are crazy. He's not worth worshiping. He's only another human being. Even if he was truly the best successful businessman on the planet, you don't worship him. You may respect him if you think that's what he is, but you don't worship him. And then to be afraid of him? How weak are you? And then you got all his sycophants, Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel, running around just being stupid. They have no idea what they're doing except self-promoting themselves to make them something they're not. He's let all these test of loyalty people in high power, and they're just, I'm Trump's guy, so I'm just going to do whatever I want. We can't have that. That's not good for this country. You got to be able to push back when people do something wrong. And when they take that away from you, they're taking away what makes this country great. We've got to look at, where do we stand? Where are our values? Where are the real leaders? We need new leaders. I said it. I said, I fail at finding them. But we need new people with new ideas, new energy. And I'm not talking to Obama, yes, we can energy. I'm talking about the energy that says, damn, we're going to have to do something pretty significant, fundamentally significant. We can still have an electoral college. We can still vote. We can still have representatives in Congress. We can still have the Supreme Court, still have a president. We can still have our government. But we need political people who understand we do need Social Security fixed. We do need better and affordable health care. Doesn't matter if it's a right-wing idea or a left-wing idea, but it has to be a better idea. Because what we currently have was failing us 20 years ago, and that's why people started getting angry, because they realized something was wrong, and then they started looking for something else. A lot of them went to the wrong places. Then conspiracy theories, people thinking, oh, we got to find out who's the evil one. Media gets out there and points fingers and says they're the evil one. People need to know who the evil one is, evil ones are, so they, jump on that. And it's just cycled into this cyclone of just constant twirling madness that we have got to stop. We got to stop the voices who are trying to tear us apart and split us apart. As you know, because I wrote it in my blog, I like to travel. And I think that's a problem. People get into cocoons and don't go out and meet other people. One of the reasons if you read my blog, you know that Better Than Half and I did a 3-week drive through Europe. One of my goals in that trip was just to stop and meet people. And I like doing it here in the United States. We don't specifically just stop and meet people like it was for the goal in Europe, but my wife and I, my family, when we had the kids at home when they were young, we drove across this country. I've driven, I would say, at least 100,000 miles in my life in this country alone. Easy. I mean, we did the American summer family vacation, sometimes 2 or 3 times during the summer. We loved it. We never managed our money well. And of course, when bad things happened, then it really clobbered us because we didn't manage our money. But we lived and we saw and we did things. We drove, we've been both coasts. I have probably driven 90% of I-40 coast to coast. The only part I haven't driven is between Oklahoma City and Little Rock, maybe a little bit west of Oklahoma City. Because we'd always, coming from Dallas, we'd go up 30 to Little Rock and then head east, no matter where it was, anywhere from North Carolina, or we go down south to 10 and go to Florida, or go up 40, then cut north out of Tennessee, the far eastern end of Tennessee, and head up into Virginia. Beautiful drive. There's a highway that goes up along the Appalachians. Beautiful drive. There's many beautiful drives in this country, but we need to go see the whole country. We don't do it. But going back to the coon. So we went and we just stopped. We would randomly just stop, go into a restaurant. That was one of the goals, or where we were, and just talk to the people. Now, yes, it's Europe. We were in 4 different countries and 2 separate independent states. We'll let you figure that out. One of them being the Vatican, which was in Rome, so it's Italian. There were some language problems. My speaks Spanish well enough that we could get along in certain areas where they spoke Spanish, specifically Spain, but we didn't spend that much time in Spain. Most of the time was spent in Portugal and Italy, with Spain and France being the crossover. I wanted to spend more time, but it was an overly ambitious trip. 3 weeks from Portugal to Rome and back was not enough time to do 1/10 of what we wanted to do. I mean, we could go back tomorrow and spend another 3 weeks the same route and still not do everything on that exact same route that we wanted to do in general. But we've got to do that. I think we forget that all of us are human beings. All of us have frailties. All of us have weaknesses. Well, maybe I should have started with the good. We're always supposed to start with the positive. All of us are strong. All of us are imaginative. All of us are creative. Sometimes it's in the very simplest ways. But we're all humans. We make mistakes. And we need to learn that we share this planet together. And the best way to work together, or the best way to keep this planet going, is to work together, to help each other out, to do the right thing for each other. And I hate saying all that because it falls on people's deaf ears because they think it's some kind of Mikey milquetoast answer to everything. And in some ways it can be, unless you actually implement doing that. If you're not volunteering somewhere, everybody has a job. But what are you doing for others? How do you know others? To me, that's one way to help start reducing some of this hate. Get out. Get out and talk to people. Get out and meet people. I loved it. One time we were in Spain and I said, we haven't done enough of that, just stopping and talking to people. So I just pulled off the highway and went into a restaurant. And we talked to the wait people of that restaurant for a good hour, had a snack, had a drink, had an adult beverage. We were on the coast. We were right next to a little pier, marina. Looked at the boats. Thought, God, it would be great just to get on one of these boats and go out into the Mediterranean. And just, this is the Mediterranean, the cradle of Western civilization. And just sit there and bask in what all that means. That was part of what I wanted to do. I kind of did it. I didn't get to bask in the cradle of Western civilization as much as I wanted to. The Mediterranean, the Greeks, the Romans, the Israelites, Jesus Christ. 2,000, 3,000 years ago, our lives were being formed from that area of the world. We don't appreciate that enough. We got to touch walls that were 2,000 years old. You forget that these things are important. Again, history, knowing people, meeting people, understanding the different cultures. These are important things to do. It's important to do in this country too. Like I said, we've driven it. I flew up to San Francisco one time, rented a car, and I drove to Reno and back, but we went through Lake Tahoe and Napa Valley and San Francisco and down the California coast a little bit, Highway 1, because Highway 1, I'd like to have done more. You just run out of time when you're a busy American. And that's a shame, but it happens. We got to still feed ourselves. We got to still pay the bills. But we need to do more of that as a country, within the country and outside the country. So when these people talk the hate and denigrate people, we realize how wrong that is. You have to look at that and say, what benefit does this do for me? No, you need our government to take care of being a government. It needs to get rid of the fraud. It needs to get rid of the waste. And there is some in the government, not DOGE, D-O-G-E, fraud and waste, because they were lying through their teeth about what they were doing. They were just cut stuff to cut stuff they didn't like. But there is real fraud and waste in our government. It needs to be addressed. But it needs to be done right. We need to look at what actually is the waste. And that doesn't happen overnight. We need to reassess. We do need to spend less money on our government. Get rid of the fraud and waste and get rid of some programs that, quite frankly, were the old days, they used to call it pork barrel stuff. It's great. Congressmen stayed. That's one reason they stay in office a long time, because they bring that pork barrel stuff in, and it brings jobs for their area, and it brings, helps the local economy. Good and bad, pros and cons to everything. But some stuff is just waste. But some stuff isn't waste. We need good science. We need good research. We need good products. Businesses will make products that make them money. Sometimes you need universities and other institutions that study things that find a better answer for what we're doing. Medicine. Yeah, pharmaceuticals make new medicine, but that's to make them money. But there are research that needs to be done on how to take better care of health that the pharmaceutical companies aren't going to do, because it won't make them a lot of money. We can't ignore science. We need to make it better. We can't ignore history. We need to learn from it. A house divided isn't going to solve our country's problems. We need to work with each other, help each other, learn from each other, and not stop demonizing each other. You may not like what that person believes, and you can honestly not like what that person believes. That's okay. But you can't hate them. You can't demonize them. You can't denigrate them. And if you call yourself a Christian and do that, you need to go back to Sunday school, because you have lost it. We have a Judeo-Christian culture, believes in one God. If you believe in one God, start listening. Start listening. And remember, there's a story. The tempest, the tempest outside the cave, the storms, the fire. Nope, God didn't speak any of those times. He whispered. God whispered. We need to stop our noise and listen. So where are we now? Like I said, I'm confused as to why independents aren't angrier. We need to fight better. We're still we are now the majority of this country. Republicans and Democrats combined are about how many independents there are. Give or take, their independents may even be in a small majority overall between the combination of Republicans and Democrats. Democrats. People know the duopoly has failed. They just don't know what to do next. And that's what we need to start looking for. We can have a rebirth of both parties, new parties, multiple parties. It doesn't matter the instruments that put people in office. What matters is who are we putting in office and what are they doing? And right now, we got a bunch of clueless Democrats who point fingers and think they're doing something when they do gotcha stuff. We got a bunch of sycophant Republicans who are either falsely worshiping somebody or unnecessarily scared of him. People like it when you stand on your own 2 feet. They really do. They recognize it. At first, it may be a little much, but some of these Republicans have got to stand up and say, hey, no, you got to stop, bud. This isn't the answer. We got to do that. We got to tell some of these hate-filled monsters, stop. You are not the answer. And it's probably going to be someone from outside of Washington, D.C. I don't see anybody on the left or the right, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, that is ready to be a leader and change things. I know the Democrats are starting to think Newsom or something is the leader. He's not. Just because he can mock Trump doesn't make him a leader. We don't need mockery. We need new answers. We need people to think about when this country was built, it was because people were working. People were looking to make things better. We need to make sure the working class and middle class are strong. It's the backbone of democracy and it's the backbone of our economy. That's what makes us great. People can buy things. When people can consume, they drive the economy. When the wealthy are hoarding wealth, when they're just using money to make money for their own benefit, that's not capitalism anymore. It's just oligarch socialism. They control the means of production. So to the government, it's just the 1%. That doesn't do this country any good. But no one has any answers. The answers, I've put a bunch in my blog over the last 15 years. There's some there. But socialism is not the answer. Cutting taxes for who? I mean, you got to run through a whole wish list of public policy is what we need. For me, we got to change how we look at public policy. It's got to benefit the middle and working classes, which is the vast majority of this country. The government, I hate it when the conservatives say we need to run our government like a business. No, government and business are two separate entities. Business is in the business of making money. Want to make me a TV, I'm going to sell it, or I'm going to be a TV repairman, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to make me money. And they focus on that. A government has competing interests they have to manage. And there is nothing in government that says we need to make money. Government wants to make money, it could tax all of us at 90%. And no one wants that. But that's what businesses do, make money. Government is supposed to figure out a way they can deal with the needs of the country affordably. We all can't spend a fortune on taxes, rich or poor. We all have to pay some taxes, so we have roads, and we have infrastructure, and we have laws to protect each other, and firefighters when a house is on fire, and policemen when we get robbed. We need these things for a balanced society. And it costs money. But a businessman is not going to be able to run that because, again, competing interests. We all got to look at what are the most immediate need and how do we afford this. And it takes everybody pitching in some pennies, i.e. taxes. But we're not getting that from our government. We're getting noise. We're getting hate. We're getting lies from both parties. And they're failing us. So go out. If you like Charlie Kirk, mourning, it's perfectly fine. I was not a fan. I'll still mourn the fact that a human being was murdered. He was murdered. That's a reality. He had 2 kids. He has a wife. That's not a reality we want for people to be shot. We didn't want the people in Minnesota, the lawmakers, Democratic lawmakers, to be shot by someone who they thought was a policeman at their door. We don't need this. Those people were murdered. Kids in school getting murdered. Everybody wants to blame, it's because that group over there is demon and horrible and are killing us. No, it's a small group on both sides. And messed up people in the head are getting triggered by all the noise. You got to tone down the noise so the messed up people in the head can go get help, talk to someone, and learn there are other avenues than hate. But when they're told to hate, they're going to respond. And we got to stop that. And the people spewing the hate need to be told to their face, stop, shut up. You are not doing this country a damn bit of good. Not one iota. And it's time you stopped. because I'm surprised, the people that want to split this country up, the people who want to do all this hate, left and right, they should be arrested for treason. Both sides. And there's a lot of people technically that could be arrested for treason, because if you go against our Constitution, if you go against the values of the Constitution, if you go against the people and what helps the people and do things that hurt the people, that technically is treason against our Constitution, which is treason against our country. And yes, there are a lot of people in Washington, D.C. that need to go to jail. But right now, that's not going to solve the problem. The hate is much deeper. We need to tell these people time to stop. And then we need to convince the vast majority of this country, let's get new people in who care, who know how to treat someone with respect, who know how to look someone in the eye and say, hey, that isn't going to work. Let's figure out a better way to get this law written. Everybody says there's no compromise in D.C. No, there's no compromise. You don't technically get good law with just compromise. You get passable law, but you don't always get good law with compromise. Sometimes you need to sit down and show people why A is better than B, but that takes talking to them, showing them, and hearing their concerns. Now, you may make adjustments, but the underlying principle still needs to stay the same. And that could come from the left or the right. It just depends sometimes on the circumstances, the time. Do we need to move forward or do we need to pull back? Liberal, conservative. We always need to maintain our values. We're a liberal nation to begin with, but now conserving those values should be a conservative view. There's this yo-yo. Sometimes the yo-yo needs to be close at hand. Sometimes we need to push it out, see where we go, break new ground. But sometimes the times will dictate what we need to do. When things are going well and everybody's in a good place, push it out. Let's explore. Let's do something. Let's look at new things. But when things are tight, economy's a little rough, let's pull it back. That is why this two-party system could work, why it was eventually sold to us 100 years ago as to why it would work. But it didn't do that, or has quit doing that decades ago. Somehow or another, we need to find that it's not just a balance, it's not just bipartisanship, but it's an understanding that things change, times change. We need different answers for different times. But right now, we need completely different answers. They don't have to upset the apple cart when it comes to the functions of our government, who we are, our Constitution, but we need to straighten out the roles. Congress needs to reaffirm its role. The presidency needs to be just the presidency, executive branch. And our judicial system needs to figure out exactly what it means to be a justice and not pick a political side. Because we got a problem with that. There are some people in our justice system that have picked political sides. It's okay for them to be conservative or liberal. 100% fine. But they're picking sides. And they're ruling based on the side, not based on what's going on. We don't need a new judicial system. We just need to let some of these people retire, get some new people elected to appoint new people to do what the judicial system should do. We don't need radical change. We need change. But we're not when I say radical, we're not changing the government. Again, socialism won't work in this country at all. So we're not going to get a socialist government. That's a pipe dream. But we need politicians working in a liberal democracy, not liberal like right, left politically, but liberal in new, different, reaching forward, breaking new boundaries. And then we need to conserve the values we've created. That's what we need to look at. People aren't going to be happy. They don't like hearing people complain, say that they're the bad person. I understand that. So certain people, you can't say that. You're being a horrible American. You're criticizing the wrong people. Yeah, I'm criticizing both sides. Because y'all aren't doing it anymore. Sometimes I'll criticize more of one side than the other. But this isn't a football game. This isn't a basketball game. It's not A versus B. This is our country. And we need people to spend more time out and about in our country. Excuse me. Meeting people, working with people. You got to read, people. Go to your library. Learn your history a little bit. You don't have to be a history major. Learn a little bit more than what they taught you in high school, American history, because it was nowhere near enough at all. Read some novels, historical novels. So you get a little fiction, get a little excitement, but learn some things from them. Read some real nonfiction history. So you understand the dynamics of what was going on when certain things were done. And go meet. Go drive. Stop. Eat lunch somewhere. Not at a Denny's on the interstate. Sorry, Denny's. I'll eat at Denny's. Eating a few breakfasts there. But in general, eat at local places. Enjoy the moment. Take time to talk to the wait people that is serving you. Take time to meet the people at the counter. Wish them well. Become an American. Respect people. You may not like the way they look because some people have some funky haircuts or wear those little things in their nose and all sorts of crazy stuff. But they're still a human being. And they work just as hard as you do. Respect the people who work hard. You don't have to work your back end off because you do need to spend time with others, volunteering, resting. Don't become so absorbed in your work you forget that you are part of a much larger planet. Take time to get to know people. Again, like I said, volunteer, travel. Do yourself some good. Get to know people so we can stop this hate. Because like I mentioned, worst 4-letter word in the language. We got to stop it. Okay. You've probably turned me off now because I've been lecturing. Go travel, enjoy it. Enjoy this wonderful planet. Go do something fun. Summer's over. Not too happy. I like longer days. The days are getting shorter, but the holidays are coming. Another good opportunity to meet people. The holidays. Go do things. Go to some parties. Go do some volunteer work. Remember that simple phrase, it's better to give than to receive. Right now, we need to do some giving to each other so we can see each other. Y'all have a great day, great evening, whatever it is, time you listen to this. But enjoy. Go do something that you enjoy. Go do something that gives you pleasure. Go do something with someone that gives you pleasure. Read a book. Go to a museum. Go hunting. Whatever it is. Go fishing. Go to the play. Go to the theater. Go watch a sporting event. Whatever it is. Be with people and enjoy their company. Travel. Work for others. That is what has made this country great. Not money, not hate, not bigotry. We do better when we fight those things and try to overcome those things. So again, I'll let you go. Enjoy. And I'll have tons of writing, and sooner or later I'll do another blog post. This is the most irregular podcast on the planet. Like I said, the better half doesn't like it. She's trying to do her own, and she's trying to be she even writes her whole script out, word for word. Gotta love her, though. Y'all have a great day.